started. Once again, full fearless as per usual. BLG starting on the blue side, where Top Esports, of course, will be getting that counter pick on red side. As the red side team in the LPL, you have to pay that Skarner Kalista tax, and we'll see which top laner BLG want to lock in early on. Without that Cassante available, it's going to be Bin locking in the Rumble.
I was going to say, you already knew. As soon as there's a Rumble available, you just kind of have to go for it. It's what we've been seeing. I think that next up, obviously, the Ambessa. We're expecting a Galio here from Creme, or from 369, and probably going to be moving the Ambessa into mid. But depending on what BLG can go for, what I'm looking is kind of going to be the jungle priority. I know it was part of our head-to-head, but Kanavi, I think, has looked a lot better when they actually have agency to make plays happen.
And he had a pretty good closing game last series on that Sejuani, so going to be another playmaker that, especially in the early game, has the ability to coordinate very, very well with a champion like Ambessa with that melee. You can stack up the permafrost, have an excellent 2v2 whenever you get into her lane, whether it is top or mid. See what the response is here, though, for BLG. Still a lot of very high-priority junglers available. That Sejuani was something that Wei definitely has stuck to in the past and been a very strong pick for him, but things like the Maokai also available. This would be a bit of a deviation from what we've seen from him historically, and with a pick like the Nidalee, more leaning towards a bigger initiator for somebody like Wei.
Yeah, I was wondering what kind of AD Bruiser we were going to get. I honestly would not be too afraid of a Wukong here, but Xin Zhao doing perfectly fine into some of the melee matchups. Interesting to me, no Galio yet. I mean, it can be locked in here, or if TES want, they can try to snap up an AD carry. Ashe, Varus, all of these champions still available without any of the bans, and if you want to kind of mismatch some of the picks there, that is a potential for TES, but seems like they're more focused on trying to get Creme's champion pool. I think wanting to put him on comfort is so important in a series like this.
And so that Galio will be pushed to a later game here in the Fearless format. Imagine, things like Kennen have risen a little bit in priority, although that is kind of an Ala specialty at a point. Potentially that is a matchup that they're going to look to try to counter that Galio with. And with the Akali lock-in for Creme, we have entered the second phase of bans with bottom lanes still yet to be selected. This bottom lane matchup between JackeyLove and Elk getting a little bit more attention here in this Game 1 draft.
I think Renata for both of these teams gets so much extra value, not only in the fact that it is a range support, so being able to get early bot prio is very important, and how both of these supports like to play, but when you look at both of these team compositions, they can very easily ignore frontline, and I think we're going to get a very, very bloody game. Coming into first objective skirmishes, we're going to be seeing the ultimates from both of the solo laners from TES dive straight into the back line. I mean, this Xin Zhao gets a lot of ultimate value thanks to having all of these melees, so I really want to see what supports and what AD carries we're going to get. This is a game where playing AD carry is going to be absolutely miserable. I think Kai'Sa and Ezreal immediately come to mind for champions that are going to get extra value.
Yeah, that Rakan generally goes alongside that Xayah, especially at this point in the meta, and that's another champion that can survive the heavy dive, although it's been a little bit lower on the priority charts, but that is preventing probably that Xayah from getting locked in now that the Rakan is off the board. We'll see if one of those safer AD carries does get targeted here with this final ban from BLG. And I'd imagine that JackeyLove is going to be the one to select his AD carry here to give Crisp that counter pick in the 2v2. See what that final ban does end up being. That's the Renata that you were talking about.
All right, so TES have options. I think probably going for a blind AD on this point would be fine, especially when you're looking, again, talking about the Ezreal, the Kai'Sa. There's also been some flexibility. I think JackeyLove has been one of the more exploratory AD carries. Corki still available. We still have even his Tristana that he had played earlier on into the season. So he's going to go ahead and pick that one up. So some pretty good range coming in from TES. I want to see what BLG are able to kind of pull together in this last 4 or 5. Just this should be an explosive Game 1 with what we already have.
We'll see what the bot lane matchup is going to be here for BLG. You mentioned the Ezreal as being a bit of a safer pick and something that Elk is historically very, very comfortable on, very, very strong on. But instead, they're going to opt towards picking up their support and talking a little bit more about how they want to match up into this Corki. On the Alistar has been very good. We saw him play that specifically in the series against Weibo to an absolute T.
If this is Kai'Sa, this does mean that BLG, as the game goes on, is going to get a lot more value. You'll have so much upfront damage from an Aurora and a Rumble and the Xin Zhao, and then you have this Kai'Sa at the very end to kind of pull it all together. Instead, they want to opt for some early range, some really good spikes here for BLG on 1 and 2 items. So, TS, what is the option in support? Not very many options available, but I mean, Leona gives you the range, but going into Alistar, I think the laning phase might be a little questionable.
Rell, always a strong option here, as he gets the last pick here in the first game of this lower bracket semifinal, and that will be the selection.
Okay.
A lot of heavy engage. It seems like a very popular support pick here in the LPL. We always get it in one of these first couple of games, and this is no exception.
I actually really like what TES were able to get on the back end of this draft. Sejuani and Rell are going to provide so much great frontline, and while BLG can target it, this backline from TES, I think it's not consistent. It's not reliable. I mean, if I have an Akali going into the back line, I know hopefully she's going to be able to land a few more spells. Aurora really has to get into the nitty gritty and start sneaking around. Rumble with the equalizer can very easily be dodged out with like a Valkyrie. So as long as JackeyLove can kind of keep his Valkyrie, make sure that he's staying at range, I think this game gets a little harder, especially when we're talking about those item spikes. I mean, you're going to basically be matching Ezreal the entire time.
Yeah, there's not necessarily a ton of easy snap engage like a Nocturne or a Vi to go against JackeyLove here, and so on a team with a lot of divers on his side, he's gonna have not the hardest time, but it's really gonna be on him to issue as much backline damage as possible on a team that is mostly on the other side consisted entirely of divers that'll be going in onto the backline and trying to pick up an engage and a snap engage that way here. So for top esports, a lot, of course, goes on to JackeyLove, where I feel like BLG, on the other hand, have a very well-rounded composition that can do a lot of different things here in the first game of this best of 5. Again, the two top teams in the LPL from 2024 on the domestic front are facing off here in the lower bracket semifinals. The winner awaiting JDG in the lower finals, and the winner of that one has a chance to head to first stand after taking down anyone's legends. As we get our cinematic intros, we are back here once again. Thank you so much for tuning in to the LPL. It's been such a fantastic playoff so far, and I cannot wait to see the magic continue here between BLG and Top.
The fans got to show up, man. Big match ahead of these two teams. Big best of 5 as well. I know we were talking about the predictions a little earlier, but the fact that it's only 3-1, we only got 2 people voting for a full 5-game series kind of speaks a little bit to the level that both of these teams are playing at. We are expecting a bit of a closer series from these two, but talking about for BLG, I am worried as this game goes on that they don't necessarily have the greatest front line. The Xin Zhao ultimate's going to be great, but not really as robust as having just a straight-up Sejuani and a Rell in front of them. So it's going to be on TES to find creative angles, making sure that 369 can find flanks. And we are getting a lane swap here. Was pretty interested. Creme, you got to be careful about this one.
And he is rewarded for his risk that he took by face checking right there, as it does confirm that Elkanon will be starting towards the bottom lane. So Top Esports going to get the lane swap that they desired. I wonder if it is to help 369 on the Ambessa against an early Rumble, or if they just want JackeyLove and Crisp to get as fed as possible as we start things off. Both junglers towards the top side, so unlikely to get any vertical jungling in any situation, as 369 going very aggressive here to try to get that experience on the first 3 melee minions, and will be able to do so.
That's all you got to do when you're playing top lane now, especially if you're playing Ambessa. Because you have access to additional shielding on the W, it makes it easier for you to kind of walk up and justify making the trade to hit level 1. We saw that Bin in mid lane was trying to help Aurora, especially in Creme matchup. The fact that Creme is half HP, we're playing on 3, whichever patch that has the electrocute upgrades on it, so Knight already having Creme at half is pretty dangerous, and so I want to see if maybe after the wave has already crashed and the wave comes back to BLG, if Wei will be making a visit into mid lane.
Elkanon hitting level 2 first. 369 getting chunked out just a little bit, as he will have Chris joining him shortly towards that bottom side. That is the one deviation that Top Esports has made to this lane swap situation. It seems like they want to give JackeyLove solo XP, at least for a little bit. That does mean that Bin not necessarily as much under threat for a dive later on, but with Kanavi pathing away here from that top side of the map, makes sense to have Crisp there to have a strong side towards bottom.
Ooh, and Wei, actually, because he started on his 2 side camps before getting this red buff, will have additional combat power. It's not going to change all that much, but he'll have the red buff for slightly longer. Maybe when we talk about playing for the Grubs in 2.5, they'll be looking for a trade before the red buff falls. Things to think about as we get further. Also, Dragon on this bottom side of the map. A lot of damage on the 369, and Oh my god, okay, very close. I was wondering when 369 was going to be able to get access to the mini wave because it has been pretty tough for him so far.
7 creeps so on this first 3 minutes of the game. Meanwhile, Bin has been able to pick up slightly more in the farm department as Wei is the one to get that first clear and will be heading to that Scuttle Crab. Meanwhile, Kanavi going to be pathing straight through the mid lane. Knight, knowing that he can't do anything here in that 1v2, is going to allow that split of the Scuttle Crabs. But it does mean now that BLG have an advantage towards the bottom side of the map. Wei dashes in onto Chris. The wind becomes lightning, does connect, but the crash down shield prevents Chris from taking any more additional damage while 369 clears out that wave.
Waste a little bit of waste time, but he already got the bottom side Scuttle. There's no more camps for him to take anyway, so going to be seeing kind of a pretty similar start here for both of these junglers. And now that he has the option to go towards top side, I wonder if On is going to be looking for a recall. Again, Dragon spawning in 40 seconds, the Grubs spawning in a minute and 40. This would be about the time that we're expecting to see some early recalls from our solo lanes. And 369 still has already used the teleport, so any play onto him feels a little more permanent.
Wow, Bin actually freezing this wave up on the top side, and JackeyLove taking a chunk of damage to try and break this. Forces Kanavi to be around here as well before potentially taking that reset. And Bin honestly doing a very good job for himself here. Despite the range versus melee situation, it might start to open up with a 2v2. JackeyLove does not have a ton of mana, but is able to get the wave completely under tower before heading back. As now we take a look here. 369 actually going to eat the Ignite here from On flashing away from the Shattering Strike of Crisp, and that forces a couple of Summoner spells on top stand.
Those are really big summoner spells especially, so whichever objective BLG tend to play for is going to be one that we are expecting them to win. No flash on any Ambessa or the Rell limits their options. Obviously, Alistar taking his is a pretty fine trade, but 369 is really struggling in this lane, and part of that is the lane allocations. Like you were noting earlier, they let JackeyLove get all this solo experience. They want to try to see if they can turbocharge a level 6 early here for the franchise player of TES. And as we get out, we're seeing the AD carries or the AD carry bot lane for BLG immediately move towards the mid lane. It seems like they really want to try to get Grubs, specifically trying to take this away from some of the opponent's side laning that could occur with Creme and this Ambessa.
So those Grubs have spawned. BLG going to get that first move towards the area. They have sent all 5 of their members here early, and they want to be the ones to potentially start this objective up. On the other side, Creme has been sent down to catch bots. The top will be a little bit late to the play if they want to fight this out 5v5, and it looks like they might want to. Crisp looking rather aggressive here.
Creme's going to finish pushing this wave and then maybe look for a teleport. I think it's tough, but ooh, there's no ult for 369 here, so I think this is a losing
Wade's got the second as well. Equalizer does come over the top with the Between Worlds of Night as well. Nice flash away here from JackeyLove, but Crisp taking way too much damage, and the teleport is all too late from Creme on the Akali. It's first blood to BLG, and they can head right back to the Grubs to finish that one up.
Why isn't TES trying to commit towards the bottom side play? You already had sent Creme down there. You know that you're missing ultimate from 369. Why bother trying to contest? You end up losing the first kill, and you still give over all of the Grubs. This is, I think, a big loss for TES so early on, and now their bottom lane's going to be able to continue to push. You already have Elk with this Xin, so he's going to be dealing extra damage, and Bin this entire time has done such a fantastic job of getting gold, getting experience for himself as this Rumble.
Yeah, so a very big early win here, and that goes to show what Elk and On were able to do to 369 compared to what JackeyLove in that isolated 1v1 was unable to do towards Bin, as he was able to collect enough XP for that equalizer to be of good use, and that allowed for BLG to pick up that first kill of the game and the first set of Grubs. They now have about a 1,000 gold lead here, 7 minutes into the game. And we talked about them being the favorites, all things considered here, and it's looking like that so far here right now.
Look, it wouldn't be a BLG show if we didn't, or it wouldn't be an LPL show if we didn't do a little bit of Bin glazing. This guy has been so consistent for so many years, man. He was, I think, one of the best players in the LPL, and then you look at him and Knight being on the same team. Oh!
Okay, 369 going to try to answer back a little bit here with a public execution onto Elk. Really nicely done in basically a 1v2 to pick up the first kill here for Top Esports.
369 playing on very thin margins. That was that trade earlier that we saw onto Elk. He was kind of in his face, making sure that he can get some of his HP, and then makes good on that at public execution. We even saw On kind of help him. He's like, you know, I'll give you a little bit of a fist bump here. Moves him into it. Tough spot now because, I mean, TES, they get to push out on this top wave. Crisp can take his recall as well, kind of get back into whatever lane he wants to, potentially even redeploy out into mid lane and look for a shove. Still no first dragon, I think is rather peculiar here from both of our teams. I mean, still got 2 minutes before Grubs. We would expect with the priority that we were seeing from BLG that they would be making a play, but TS seemed unwilling to make. Oh my god, On.
Yeah, 369. He was sitting on a ward, and now On comes in here with the headbutt pulverized combo. That is the trade, potentially, with one more auto, as Elk will get his revenge here in the 2v1.
And right now, TS, they're focused on putting their bot lane in mid, but they're not even moving for the dragon. They're trying to cover for this top wave. We get a replay of this. This was, again, that trade that put Elk on 40% HP. The fact that 369 is able to stay here for so long and die at the end of it or after this is, I mean, just a testament to what's happening. We're getting a picture-in-picture, maybe some action.
2v2 has opened up. Equalizer comes down over that Shroud of Creme, so that prevents any further aggression as a public execution is just used as a dash backwards. Still, that dragon has not been picked up yet by either team. You can see both junglers maybe posturing forward a little bit by going for that play on the bottom side.
I think TS playing with a little bit of hesitation here. Again, they still have Kanavi with this ultimate, and like you were saying, there are not many frontline members here for BLG. I think a perfect fight for TES would be similar to like what we just saw here in top lane. 369 or Creme finding the back line, being very nuisance-some for the rest of BLG, and kind of taking them out from underneath them where they're not really expecting, hey, how do we deal with the flanks? How do we deal with members that can go invisible like this Akali?
The game has slowed down just a little bit. We got that second spawn of Grubs in about 30 seconds. You can see top esports potentially the ones to get to that play first, with JackeyLove just hovering around mid. He's getting that push, keeping that prio, and has opened up about a 20 CS lead so far here over Elk. And even though they haven't necessarily faced off that much in the 1v1 or in the 2v2, JackeyLove certainly in a very good spot. Public execution going to be used just to try to close that gap or prevent the gap from being closed here by 369, as he has been basically put on weak side duty on this Ambessa, consistently being targeted.
He is getting so much attention from BLG, and look, we've got Grubs spawning here. Creme is on his way, but no ultimate, I think, is going to be kind of a big game breaker for the team. If they can make this play without Akali, then I think they're obviously very strong already, but it's first of them on the play. Knight is teleporting, so see how many Grubs BLG can grab.
They get at least one, so that means that the feat of strength will not go BLG's way, and it seems like that's all the top esports wanted to commit to after they saw that Knight channel the teleport and utilize that summoner spell. So they're going to give up 5 of the 6 Grubs. It means that it will not be the full feat of strength given over to them in that objective department, but they will be able to get those Void Mites crawling in, as top esports still looking to bide their time until another fight, as we see a really nice dash away here from 369. That was On, looking to make an aggressive play, and now BLG looking to collapse upon the Ambessa underneath the tier 1 turret, but he's going to have some support eventually. Nice flash away from the pulve, and that means that Wei is now the one who is targeted. The Crescent Guard is up, but all 3 members of TS are in melee range and will be able to take Wei down.
They just tried to get out from under the turret. That was a really good response coming in from TES, because 5 Grubs, 4 members from BLG, that turret all of those turret plates were going to be going down and giving a lot of gold after the play, but able to make good on that. They did have to trade teleports between our 2 mid laners, but I think protecting 369 in this instance, really important. So far this season, he has, I think, been the most consistent player for this team, and obviously we talked about his pedigree beforehand, but he really needs to be able to show up in this series against a player like Bin, who historically has been able to get the better in this matchup.
Yeah, and consistent even in situations where, like this game here, not necessarily been the primary focus of his team. Been able to sit on the weak side and pick up kills, find opportunities to grab gold whenever necessary. And now with top esports starting up this dragon finally, with Wei on the other side of the map, it should be very easy pickings for them, even though it is being done completely under vision with that control ward down there at the bottom of the screen. So we're back to a closer game state here. It's still about a 1,000 gold lead here for BLG. A lot of that actually in the mid lane right now, as Knight has that first blood kill, and also about a 15 to 20 CS lead over Creme in this range versus melee matchup.
Doing well for himself. We've got a minute before the Otacon kind of spawn is revealed. I wonder if it is going to have to be topside just because of how much trading we saw. And because of how late the Dragon is, I don't think we're going to be seeing too much activity around this Drake pit. Obviously, it's still an important objective, but usually when Otacon and Drake spawn on the same side, it definitely makes the game a little bit more tumultuous than some teams were expecting. So Knight taking a good trade up against JackeyLove, but this seems like a full topside control coming in from BLG. They are always pushing and then moving into topside jungle for making sure that they get vision. Maybe they really want to focus this turret now that they have 5 grubs.
And they're going to start an invade here on the enemy red buff. Kanavi here to try to take that away and make sure that is not an option for Way to grab. But you can see the pressure that BLG is consistently putting on. This combo of Way and On that we've consistently said has to be a duo that works together in tandem. So far, they have been doing so successfully. They're now navigating towards that top lane once again, as Bin is going to get this wave crashed in. Maybe look for a play onto Creme. Kanavi is here to make sure that doesn't happen.
369 also has the teleport coming up. Maybe there's a play, but it seems like right now they want to just make sure they can get their recalls in, because we've got the Herald spawning in 2 minutes. What are BLG looking to set up? They just got pushed in mid. Aurora is probably going to be looking for a recall after this, if not trying to make a roam. So seem like BLG, they're going to try and make the swap over here. They want to try to, now that turret plates are down, get a first turret for Bin, accelerate this rumble, and put him in a really good spot.
Yeah, just picking up that Leandries. I think both of these soul laners are going to be very strong on the next fight because of the item spikes that they have just hit. On the other side here for Top Esports, Creme has not done too much here so far, but he plays a big role in terms of how this composition wants to function here, Alk. You have him and 369 as being the big divers for this team to try to get onto the backline, assassinate somebody like a Knight or an Elk in one of these team fights, and a lot of pressure on this younger player, one of the newer faces here to a top LPL program. But right now, we see the junglers duking it out here a little bit as well. Kanavi spotting out Way underneath his own Raptors, and that allows for JackeyLove to get that push in mid.
And Creme is playing one of his champions. That's one of the big criticisms that has been held against him in the past 2 years, right? Like that he was a kind of a melee specialist. I think his Yone has been really impressive. He eventually got a lot better at marksman, but the mages haven't quite been there. So here on his Akali, he needs to be able to perform alongside his team. And we've got Dragon kind of spawning in 2, but my eyes are looking at that Herald in 30 seconds. They got a lot of damage onto Way, and TES are looking for angles, looking for any kind of vision they can get. But the waves right now, it is so much easier for BLG to just clear the waves both in mid and top and just have access to this entire river.
Yeah, it seems like every time we pan towards the top side of the map, BLG have top push, and they're looking to send Creme back under the tower to collect the scraps of the CS. And that means that they're going to have an easier time of setting up around this Rift Herald, which is now spawned. Top Esports don't want to give it away too easily here, as Creme takes a pretty heavy trade from Knight. You can see the damage that the Electrocute does here with the Aurora. And now BLG getting priority in the mid lane, forcing JackeyLove back. They are really dominating this top side of the map in terms of their wave management, and are now looking for a little bit of extra aggression here, potentially onto Kanavi.
It's the ye old verbiage. Push mid, then roam. Move into the river. You can do all that, and it's great. So, double Trinity forces here for both of our AD carries. So, very big spike. I think TES can feel comfortable to fight. Again, no front line from BLG that is really going to be able to tank up this ultimate. Only On that has to kind of be there, but he has so many jobs to do, right? He has to be able to peel for his back line. He also needs to be able to stop the engage from TES. So you can only do so many things at the same time as Alistar. And now we're seeing it. Ambessa triggering the back, but can TP for this play. Seems like TES more focused on trying to get this mid-tier 1, which is about 60% HP. They've got Trinity Force, which makes it a lot easier. Maybe they try to find an escape kill.
There's nothing that they can do about it, with BLG having the first move to the play, and with 369 taking a decent chunk and forced to go back to base. That will be the Rift Herald in exchange for just, you know, a wave being pushed under the mid lane tier 1. Definitely a worth trade for BLG, as all that time and effort that they spent towards impacting the top side of the map has paid off.
5 grubs. Now they have the Herald. Dragon's already about to spawn, and you've got the Otacon in 2.5. They can save the Rift Herald, look for this mid-tier 1 if they really need to, or any turret, honestly, but you're looking at one that's going to be able to kind of open up the map, specifically the entrances to the jungle. BLG should be looking for at least some kind of play here, and TES, they have a ton of engage options. They are finally here first into the river, which sets them up for this Dragon.
So This is the first play that really Top Esports has been able to get to first. Problem is, fortunately, Creme is not there as well, so they don't feel super strong to just start this objective off. And it's actually On that is going to go in first, and the Equalizer finds a beautiful choke point here in the jungle. Teleport comes in from Creme, but it might just be too late. 369's in trouble, and 369 will fall. That is the first kill going towards BLG, and they now have a numbers advantage here in the mid lane. JackeyLove doing a decent amount of damage with the rockets, but it's now Bilibili Gaming who have the opportunity to break open this mid lane tier 1 turret with the Rift Herald in their hands.
And this sequence of play kind of, I think, sets them up for the next couple of minutes afterwards. Not only did they get some summoner spells out from TES, but they'll be able to crash in with these Grubs, with this Herald.
Another engage
find
here.
More.
Yeah, Crisp is actually going to go into follow, lands a little bit of crowd control onto Wei. Elk still untouched, though, on this backline, and will be able to rip apart Crisp. True Shot Barrage over the top, sends JackeyLove to below 300 HP. Creme now forced to go in, might get a trade onto Knight, but Knight will survive. It's a double kill for Elk. He's going in for another one, a triple kill for the Ezreal. And now 369 looking to clean up the scraps. He has the public execution available, but he will not find it onto Knight. And now he has been left isolated underneath his own tower, and it's a big swing of gold for BLG.
BLG's Game 1 has looked nothing less than amazing here as they open up this best of 5 with a full court press onto top side, completely ransacking any of these objectives from TES. And honestly, this Top Esports roster, at least in this Game 1, have not been able to get much done on the map. This starts off with the engage from Chris, but it doesn't go on to anybody. This Equalizer splits up the fight. 369's by himself. Creme is already too late to this play, and he still ends up going down at the back end of this. So, I mean, TES are just losing more and more and more with every single fight, and it doesn't seem like much is going their way in this game.
It seems like Top Esports are just letting BLG engage on them first, even when they have first move, and it is not paying off for them. That's now the second fight this game where Creme has been late from a teleport, and it ends up costing them big time here. You can see Creme almost getting enough damage here, but Elk really popping off in the back end of this fight.
Flash arcane shift forward. He wants to squeeze every little bit of damage that he can in this series. He knows he's going up against a legend here in the LPL versus JackeyLove. And we noted a little bit about how these AD carries are going to have very similar spikes. But you look at this Ezreal now, Trinity Force done, Muramana now completed. JackeyLove is not even close to it right now. So anywhere that Elk is, I think TES want to try to avoid and hope that they can get into a position a little bit later into this game. But I think that the window is starting to close for this team as now another turret is going to fall, and they can't even make this play onto Bin underneath this turret.
And now they're going to look for, instead, Wei here as Creme is going to come in. Public execution is available. They end up picking it up, but it will be a 2-for-1 in response as Elk is just able to match beautifully with the Equalizer doing a ton of damage as well.
This game just gets more and more frustrating, honestly. Like, TES, they're bashing their heads. They're trying to find something. Oh, the ultimate doesn't land from 369. Honestly, Graves, I'm just going to be real, guys. This game's looking chalked. TES are just not here to play in this Game 1.
Yeah, it's not. Every single play that they've gone for has not worked out for them. It's instead been BLG really pushing the tempo and having that go in their favor. They have now claimed all 3 of the outer turrets, with Bin picking up the bottom side tier 1. And they have full control over this map right now. They lead by over 5,000 gold. And this is the BLG Alk that we were expecting to see coming into this season. I think overall that Thunder Talk series is now looking closer to an anomaly than the norm here for this team with how clean they've been.
Okay, so, this was literally just, they met up. Elk was in the area, gets a free red buff from his jungler. And the entire time, I mean, Aurora splitting on the top side of the map. They just don't have enough damage. It takes them too long. The Sundered Sky, especially coming in from Wei, gave him just a little bit more healing. And now he'll be finishing up a Black Cleaver in a few minutes' time. So he's going to get more and more HP. It's going to get tougher for TES to actually find anything. And honestly, I'm kind of looking at these 2 item spikes now. JackeyLove has finished his 2. You have a Shadow Flame that's almost completed here for Creme. Double items on 369. This has been the most consistent member for this squad, and so these public executions need to land. This Ambessa needs to have a big impact alongside the assassin mid lane.
You talk about these soul lanes and how they are essential for Top Esports success, but you look at what they're going up against in terms of what champions could they potentially dive. It's an Aurora that is super fed, and Elk on the Ezreal, which is one of the hardest AD carries to fight against if you are an assassin player. So things are looking very tough, and it's actually maybe Crisp that was in danger of being assassinated there. That True Shot Barrage nearly connected onto him. As BLG continuing to show their dominance here in the mid lane. They pick up priority here, looking to siege onto this tier 2.
BLG not even bothering to start up the Otacon. There was a moment there where 369 could have been able to grab this turret, but he's going to force Bin's hand. If they can't grab this turret fast enough, Ambessa is on the way, but Chris has way too little HP. I think this is so tough. So now 369 kind of just makes the roam just to make sure that there's nothing going on, and BLG are going to continue their onslaught under the structures of TES. And imagine now, Baron in a minute and a half, a fight around any one of these objectives, whether it's the top side or this dragon, can very easily snowball into grabbing that Otacon, grabbing the other objective as well. So TS need to be able to pick their fights, and BLG just look unassailable right now, hitting their 2-item cores a little bit quicker than their opponents. And so far, aside from, I know the gold lead says 6,000 right now, but aside from Elk, everyone's within touching distance of each other when you talk about their lane opponents. So as much as I've been kind of doomer about TES, they still have avenues into this game. It's just going to be very tough to deal with almost 3-item Ezreal here at 26 minutes.
Yeah, he's going to be a bit of a problem here, as you can take a look at the stats on the left side of your screen. Elk, again, just a very consistent player. I feel like this Ezreal is like kind of a staple champion of his over the last couple of seasons. Where on the other side here for JackeyLove, one of the most storied AD carries in LPL history, especially of the 2020 specifically. And on this top esports roster where he's been for so many years, he's going to have to take a big step and be a big carry for his team if they want to run away here with this first matchup in the best of 5. But instead, it's BLG starting up this dragon. Teleport comes in preemptively from 369, so top esports want to fight this. They land the stun briefly onto On, but not a ton of damage has been dealt just yet. Now the engage is onto Kanavi. He's ticking. A big engage from Chris, but the equalizer is buying so much time. And the Crescent Guard in from Wei is huge. The Between Worlds are going to do a ton of damage, but right now Creme still able to do a bit here. He's picked himself up a double kill, but will get burned down here by Knight. JackeyLove, the last remaining survivor, and it will be all 5 down here for top esports. It's an ace for BLG.
Well, TES, you got the bottom lane, but look at what you lost for it. The entirety of your members. Almost all of the summoner spells are now gone for TES, and I think that might just be their nexus going in a few minutes' time. It's the dragon here as well. Such a great team fight coming in for BLG, and like you had noted during that call, I mean, look, where is Creme? He thought maybe he would have time to wrap around this dragon pit, doesn't. 369 finds a great engage, but alongside this Crescent Guard, it is not enough for TES. And they use all of this power to try to find the shutdowns, try to get these kills, but even the solo lanes, I know we're talking a lot about the bottom lane, but Knight and Bin have been making sure that they're getting resources, that they're getting items, they're getting gold, and they are just so damn powerful in this fight. Bin having the most damage in that team fight, I think just shows all that you need to see.
That's what fighting with Rumble in like a, you know, a bit of a constrained area.
It wasn't even like the equalizer. He's just cooking them with overheat Q. Like, the Flame Spitter is insane.
And that ultimate from Wei was also massive. It split off the rest of the front line for top esports away from JackeyLove, and that meant that the Corki was not nearly able to do enough damage to allow for top esports to win that fight. So now they are down even further than they were just a couple of minutes ago, with that second dragon also going their way. Gold lead now almost 8,000, and you were talking about how everybody was kind of within striking distance other than JackeyLove.
Wonderful caster curse from myself.
That has changed a little bit. It is now over 1,000 gold lead for all 3 members of the top side for BLG, and they're looking to continue to put the pressure on as Kanavi has been caught out and will be going down. That is certainly the Otacon, if not more.
I was like, okay, we found some damage onto Wei. Maybe there's an angle for TES to compete, but still some good ultimates. No unbreakable here for On. Maybe they can find the support of BLG, but oh, Creme.
Yeah, it's going to take a bit of a miracle, and Creme is already getting bursted
down.
Knight jumps over the wall with the Between Worlds and will shut Creme down. That is going to be another kill on to the top esports mid laner, as well as that Otacon being picked up. And now with Kanavi still dead for another 15 seconds and the revives in hand, no question BLG want to pick up this Baron.
It's been 8 minutes now since we kind of called this game in favor of BLG. They're kind of finding some angles around this Baron. If it's a lucky steal from TES, it'll merely delay the inevitable for them. And just BLG, man, they came to play. I think that they very much took that kind of loss to TT from the group stage that we've been noting every single time, and they've slowly been able to ramp up their gameplay. We're going to have to hope to see from TES if they have been able to match that level of improvement throughout the series, because so far, it is looking a lot like the last 2 years here for BLG, where they dominate the entire region, and it is only up to how much can you play upset, spoiler, to the big dogs.
I think we mentioned it at the top of the show, but the last time 369 and Top Esports taking down BLG was back in 2022, or taking down Knight, I think, specifically. So the matchup between those two former teammates has definitely gone Knight's way, gone the mid laner's way, and it's looking like that is the case here as well. On the Aurora, he's picked up a book, got 14 pages in it, and with the Baron buff in hand and nearly over a 10,000 gold lead, BLG looking to put on the finishing touches of this game. They have the Otacon buff for another minute, so that is 2 more waves of control where they'll have both that and the Baron up minions. At least an inhibitor is going to be their goal, if not potentially the game. On the other side here in the mid lane, you see Knight actually getting targeted a little bit as Crisp tries to go for a desperation engage and will get taken down. Bin eats up that Glacial Prison, will be taken down about 40% HP, but again, has the revive and does not care about the damage that Top Esports is able to put onto him.
That's it. Yeah, this game is just done. Maybe now, Creme, look, there's low HP, but even if BLG lose here, there's still Otacon revives. So this is just going from bad to worse.
Yep, Creme gets knocked up here. He's out of the Shroud, and he is dead. Still 5 men strong for BLG in the base of Top Esports, and only 1 Nexus Tower left between them and a Game 1 victory. On goes in, knocks up 369. He'll go back into the Rebirth, but the rest of his team surely will not. The Nexus is exposed. BLG farming those KDAs, baby, because they know that they have controlled and they have dominated this game number 1. It'll be just a revive here, sending Elk back to base, but the Nexus will fall, and Bilibili Gaming will take Game 1.
Knight does not want to lose those Magi stacks. I was going to note that, you know, we have a lot of BLG isms in this game. We have the Knight being able to have his Magi Soul Stealers, and then Bin on this Rumble. I mean, just perfection, honestly. Not only in the lane swap, he's able to make sure that he's getting gold. TES were not able to leverage the fact that they sent over the Alistar to help this Ambessa, and I mean, it's so impressive to see, specifically for a player like Bin, who in years past, his Rumble has been questionable, hasn't been the greatest, but I think in the last year and a half has really leveled up his gameplay and kind of contributed to one of the reasons why he's not only the best player in the world and in this region, but one of the most consistent forces for BLG.
Yeah, and it's gotten to the point now where he's able to lock that in, B1, and have that not be an issue despite the fact that he was lane swapped on, despite the fact that he was getting peppered by this Corki throughout the early game. Really, really impressive stuff from Bin, who has, I think, leveled up as this series and as this season has gone on. Split 1 overall. We know he's one of the best top laners in the world here, Alk, but it seems like whenever the pressure is on, whenever it's a do-or-die situation, he really is able to step up to the plate.
It doesn't even matter. Like if it's like a regular season game, this guy puts forth like a pretty good effort. When he's, like you're saying, in an elimination game, Bin just feels inevitable, especially here in the LPL. Maybe internationally, some fans might have some qualms about that, but I'll let you one guy me when we get to internationals. You don't get to do it here in domestic.
Yeah, because domestically, it's been all BLG throughout 2024, and they want to make sure that that is a consistent theme here in 2025. Remember, Knight, 6 straight domestic finals. Even though we started off in the lower bracket here, wants to make sure that streak is able to continue, even in this abbreviated split number 1. So BLG looking especially dominant here to kick off our best of 5, while Top Esports really just seemed to never get any sort of momentum. It seemed like every time they wanted to make a play, some people were in first, while other people were still really not arriving to the fight. We mentioned the multiple times that Creme was late to both the Grub play as well as another play around the Dragon, and that resulted in BLG having numbers advantages, and Top Esports just never wanted to be the one to start a play, and they never were the one to win a play.
They never got to, we thought that maybe with their ability to eventually move, but I think part of that has to deal with the mid lane. We never got to really see Creme get to move. Obviously, you're playing melee into ranged, but Aurora having such an easy time of moving made it hard for him to shift over the bottom lane as well. When we talk about Elk and On, made it difficult for Crisp, especially, to kind of make different moves. He wasn't really able to connect because he had to basically handhold 369 through the laning phase because of the lane swap. So tough spot for TES. It felt like the engage buttons that we wanted to see from Kanavi and Crisp never got into a good enough spot, and even some of the engages that were started by TES never actually fired off. Like, I'm thinking of that play around, maybe it was topside. I'm thinking it's the blue side river ramp into Raptors. Chris just missed the crash down.
Yeah.
That's kind of your entire engage there, which doesn't help, but we never got to see kind of what TES were able to pull off, and Elk especially getting off to such a great lead made it very difficult for the AD carry and JackeyLove to kind of do anything.
And I think another thing that makes this difficult, as we've run through some highlights here, is the fact that we are in this fearless format, and you think of a player like Creme specifically, who you mentioned has been a little bit more gated towards these melee champions as being a specialty. Now is not going to have that Akali for the rest of the series, and there's other really strong power picks like 369's Ambessa that also will be unavailable for them. So this was a moment where it felt like they got different things that they wanted here in this Game 1 draft, but it doesn't end up resulting, even in a close competitive game, just results in them being down 1-0 very early on in this series.
Hey, that does mean that they'll have side select, so hopefully they're able to win a game on blue, but if BLG are able to win on red, I think we have a bit of a problem. It's pretty tough, especially when we have such high expectations, and we do think that these teams should be even enough in strength, at least from what they're playing right now. So, I mean, this is mostly a highlight reel. Like, even when they get caught out, BLG are still winning the trade, still winning out on top side. I think this is the engage that I was talking about, where I see Crisp and this doesn't really land, so... Oh, it does land. Okay, never mind. I'm just a Crisp hater. Okay, that's fair, honestly.
I think this is another one of those situations, though, where, you know, all of top esports were not at the play in time, and they were in the situation where they should be the one to start the engage, but because Creme had not arrived with the teleport, it makes it very, very difficult for them. And that was the fight where Ben really was able to get going here on this Rumble. Another one of those plays here happens is Creme unable to get into the fight whatsoever, and that's allowed for the Baron and the Otacon to eventually be taken, and then the game.
Yeah. So MVPs, honestly, probably going to go to Elk because of his Ezreal play. I would not be surprised to see one of our solo lanes for BLG pick it up either, considering some of their individual excellence this game. I would love to see, from someone that didn't really get to see too much of Bin in this game, except from team fights, a Rumble MVP, but I understand. We got to pick the flashy plays.
I mean, that flash E under the turret. That in there, in my head, and then probably some of the voters' heads, immediately is going to shift that conversation towards Elk on the Ezreal. Had a very good game, led the game in damage, although being on a ranged champion, being on a poke champion like that, you obviously get that inherent advantage. But overall, just a very strong game start to finish here for BLG. It seemed like a lot of the mistakes and the problems that we were harping on for them leading into their start of their lower bracket playoff run were not an issue here in this game, and hopefully for them will continue to not be an issue as they have their sights beyond this lower bracket semifinal, right? They want to beat JDG. They want to match up against anyone's legends in the grand finals. They want to go international just like they have done over the last two splits, as we are waiting for our MVP right now.
I think that was also the kind of the question for BLG, for a team that just came off of playing in grand finals at Worlds, who were making every international, went very deep, obviously won all of 2024. How seriously were they going to take this event? Because they took off Demacia Cup. We didn't see that roster play. They come in here. They have a couple of rough best of fives at the very beginning of group stage, and it seems like now they're really starting to gear up. There we go. It goes over to Knight. Okay, so look, he had that Aurora play. I get it. Had the Magi's as well, so the Magi's ego sealer definitely kicked in for our boy Knight.
I think what makes it so obvious that this was a BLG-dominated game is that there were 3 different players that could have won player of the game, and we would have been completely fine with any of them, as Knight had some really good moments on the Aurora here in this one. So congratulations to BLG for taking the first game of the series. Still a lot of League of Legends to be played here, though, on LPL English. Before we head to break, we want to give a big shout-out to all of our supporters here on Coffee and on YouTube. We are extremely grateful to our Coffee and YouTube subscribers who help level up the show, as a lot of the initial payments that have gone in so far have gone into upgrading the broadcast, but also a huge bulk of it comes to support the on-air talent and production staff and all the content creators as well who help make this show possible. Remember, this is a volunteer broadcast, so your support helps us be able to continue to create the product and improve on something and a project that we are very, very passionate about. So you can subscribe to our coffee. It's linked into the chat to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews that we'll be getting later on here in the playoffs. Once again, BLG taking game 1 of this lower bracket semifinals. We'll see if Top Esports can respond.